is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Season 2, Episode 2. When will Josh see how cool I am? In this episode, Rebecca pretends to be an amazing ping pong champion of the Northeastern Seaboard Regional somethings, and it doesn't fool anybody. Plus, Greg comes out to his friends about his alcoholism. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Natasha. First of all, thank you very much to Megan for commissioning this episode. Y'all, this episode was really satisfying to watch. I feel like despite knowing these characters fairly well by now, I still don't always know what they're going to do. Even though that there's obviously very real patterns of behavior that they're engaged with that aren't great, and that sort of thing should be kind of predictable. But I am impressed at the way this show can still surprise me, and it's not even that it surprises me by making characters do things that I didn't expect. It's more the way the characters decide to handle the thing. I can say, oh, I know so-and-so is going to be mad, but I don't really know what that looks like exactly. They're going to be mad, but how will that manifest? And I really enjoyed seeing this episode the way that you see like a tiny kernel of growth for a lot of people. So it's not like they are the same exact characters that we got to know initially. And it's not like they aren't learning anything from their mistakes, but they are certainly still the same people, you know? So yeah, the beginning of this episode is, guys, oh God, there is so much about this show that is relatable. So this first scene with Greg, he's talking about alcoholism and it being something that he used as sort of armor. Alcohol was armor. It made him not care what other people were thinking. It made him not care how he himself felt about things. And he really thought that it was working. And then he looks up and realizes that his life is slowly falling apart. And he had just completely lost track of that part of the way he lives his life. And that is such a real thing. When you're somebody who is dealing with an addiction, there is a reason you are drawn to whatever it is you're drawn to. For me, it has always been abusing food, overeating in order to not feel whatever I'm feeling, to make myself feel better, because I have such strong food memories associated with my childhood that when I'm down, I really believe that eating a certain thing will fix me, that I will genuinely feel better. And it is only the last couple of years that I've really seen that pattern in a broad sense and started to understand how frequently I do it, even though I think of it as something that I only do when I'm extremely upset. It is something that I do when I am just having a bad day. I'm just stressed out. It's not even having to be anything extreme. And when you have started to abuse something and use it as an escape from facing what exactly you're going through, that's what happens. At first, it's something that you do for a kind of a special occasion thing, and then it just gradually becomes just what you do. And I just really like seeing Greg working through all this stuff. So he has a little chat with this dude named Guardrail, who kind of seems like the one who runs the meetings. The thing about meetings like this is usually there's different people who lead the meetings oftentimes, but there will be the one person who is responsible for getting there and opening the doors. They have the key to the church or the community center or whatever. And Guardrail is that guy because he's the one that gets to decide who brings the donuts. So Greg is telling him about how great he feels. He's surprisingly like doing really well with this. And Guardrail says, yeah, I remember when I first got sober, I kind of felt euphoric. And then I realized that was just the honeymoon phase. They call it the pink cloud, which I have heard of. And then it wears off and you have to deal with some real shit. Hi, yes. This is exactly the thing other people who deal with food issues, I will continue to refer to this, know that feeling of like doing really well for a little while, taking better care of yourself and eating better and being like more connected to your body, and you think you've got it fucking figured out. And then something will happen. And that's how life is. But it is extremely easy to tell yourself, I mean, it's not that big a deal. I can just I'm just going to do this to like just feel like today was an exceptionally bad day. An exceptionally bad thing happened to me. And the thing with food versus alcohol is you can just not do alcohol, but you can't just not eat. So you can sort of like fudge things a little bit. But yeah, Greg he's not super receptive to this, because the thing about going through the pink cloud is that you always feel like you really do have it figured out. You always really feel like you've nailed it, you got it, and you feel unshakable. And when somebody tells you that won't last, you resent that because you think that they don't know how you feel and they don't understand what it was like for you before versus how you feel now. They don't get it. And it almost feels like they're expressing a lack of faith in you, which you can sort of take as an insult. And it's really tough to watch people go through this and know that you can't really like mention the honeymoon phase to them without them taking it personally, because they want to believe they're the exception to the rule. And there's a reason that it has a name, because literally everybody goes through it, but you want to be the one person who doesn't, because who wants to face the fact that they are making a major change to their life and then they're going to be tested on it and maybe fail? Like, nobody wants to believe that. So yeah, it's just it's a tough thing. Nobody goes into something expecting to fail, and they don't want to hear that they might. And frankly, when you get sober, or if you are trying to like do better with treating your body well, you are gonna fuck up. That's how it goes. Frequently, people who get sober have to try a couple times before they are able to really make it stick. And there is no shame in that at all. The only shame is fucking up and then being like, well, I guess I'm just destined to be an alcoholic and never trying again. Eric is saying, I work at a bakery at Whole Foods. Oh, I didn't know that. What's up, Eric? I didn't know you worked there. I used to work there. I was doing really well about not eating any pastries or bread for a few weeks. Then I sprained my ankle and went on leave for 6 weeks. Now I'm such a bad way with it. My keyboard completely covers the text box while I type. I have heard other people say that as well, that they can't see what they're typing. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, that's exactly the thing, is you will have an episode in your life and it will just make you feel like this one time it's fine. Like the thing that I always think when it comes to that sort of thing is nobody will blame me if I do XYZ, because I see things in the context of the judgment of other people. So it's not even about how I will feel about it if I do this. I think about the reaction of other people if they find out that I do this. And I know that I'll be like, well, such and such terrible thing happened. And, I want to do this thing. And like, is it the best choice? No, but nobody's going to blame me for it. Nobody is going to be mad at me. And it's like, that is so not the point. How do you feel about it? How are you going to look at yourself? And that's really what so many of us have to sort of like come to terms with, is the excuses that we make and the reasoning that we give ourselves, the rationalizations. And Greg comes out the other end of this episode not having taken a drink, when I really wondered if he might. And he still might, like I said, it takes more than one try to get sober. He is doing really well, but that is not to say that he isn't going to have a slip, that this isn't going to be something that he continues to struggle with. And there is also the aspect of being a dry alcoholic, which is deciding to not drink, but also not dealing with the stuff that was causing you to drink. And that will result in you lashing out at people, exhibiting a lot of the same behaviors that you did when you drank without the excuse of being drunk. And a lot of people have a hard time coping with that part of seeing themselves behaving just as shittily sober when they used to be able to say, sorry, I was drunk. I'm not usually like that. And I also wonder, because like, I love this donuts thing. Those of you who have gone to AA meetings, like for my dad's AA meetings that I used to come to with him when I was a kid, it was Dunkin' Donuts Munchkins. And they always brought boxes of Munchkins, and I always looked forward to them so much. Boston cream Munchkins, oh baby, oh baby. And what happens for a lot of people when they get sober, they begin to eat to sort of substitute for the social experience, because that's what drinking can mean for a lot of folks, is that opportunity to hang out with people. And frankly, socializing revolves a ton around drinking and around eating. And so if you take the drinking away, eating is what's left. And my father put on a bunch of weight because he just started to go to town on cookies. And it was like, his way of sort of having something and not dealing with what he was actually supposed to be facing via being sober. So I wonder if Greg will fall back on any of those things. I just wonder about the way the show is going to deal with his alcoholism and how it begins to like change his life, because it is a major shift in who you are as a person when you realize something like this about yourself. And the episode continues on with a couple of conversations. He finally tells his friends, he gathers them all together, and he tells them all like that, that he got a DUI, that he got arrested, that he's an alcoholic, and now he's sober. And he rushes through it and then is like, so kind of a shock, huh? And all of his friends are like, not really, except for Josh, because Josh is just oblivious and very self-centered. And I really love that moment as well, because the thing about having a problem like this is that it's usually pretty obvious to your friends. The only time that your friends don't really see it is when your friends are also engaged in destructive behavior. And because they don't see it in themselves, they don't see it in you. And there can be a couple ways that works. Like some people, they don't want to face that you are an alcoholic because that means that they probably are too, and they don't want to look at that. But there can also be the aspect of, they kind of know they themselves are an alcoholic, and they hang out with you because you're even worse than they are. And that makes them feel like they have less of a problem, and they hyper focus on what you're going through and what you're doing rather than looking at their own behavior. And that's a whole other thing. But yeah, this moment of him realizing that his friends are not surprised by this. That's a real like kind of slap, I think, of just like shock for him of realizing, oh, I really wasn't hiding this well at all. I thought that, I was just the fun guy, and telling them that, this actually isn't about fun for me would be really surprising. And meanwhile, all his friends are like, dude, you would like pass out. And it was just obviously like you weren't having a good time. That wasn't the vibe we were getting from you. And that goes into his song about all of the things that he did while he was drunk, which is really funny, but also, upsetting, because that's the thing about stories like this is they make great stories. Like if you tell somebody like, oh my God, I got so drunk and I stole my cousin's, what does he say? His like landscaping truck, I think. When you're on the outside and you're at a party and somebody's very animated and telling you this story, it comes across as just funny. But when you stop and think about it, it's really awful. Like imagine his cousin waking up, his truck is stolen. He doesn't know what the fuck happened. And then he finds out that a relative took it just because he was really fucking drunk. And that would just like be a bummer, man, And that's the thing about all of these stories is like, White Josh, when he first is telling them how he'll like stand up from the bar and he'll have peed his pants and he doesn't even realize it. Josh's reaction is, wow, I did not realize it was that bad. And, you know, that's the correct reaction when you hear stories like this, is like simultaneously it's a little funny and also low-key horrifying and like, yeah, buddy, you need help. So yeah, the whole thing with Greg, I'm just really into it. I felt so bad because I knew as soon as he volunteered to bring the donuts that he wasn't going to make it to the meeting. I knew that it was just him. He was going to let the group down, and he was sort of going to prove their point, which is that you are not the exception. You are going to go through difficulty with this. And it's a moment of realizing, I think, that the people who have gone through this before you have valuable things to say and contribute to your recovery. And maybe you should listen to them, because I think it's really tempting initially to think you've got it figured out and don't really need any help anymore. And there's a reason why groups like this meet over and over again. This is an ongoing process. You don't just get to flip a switch and be okay. Every single day, you are going to have to face the person you are and face situations that will test you. And the people that are at these meetings are there for their own reasons and also as a resource to those who are going through it the first time and who maybe are unprepared for how hard this is going to be. So anyway, I just am really into that whole scene. So then we go to Rebecca, and she's at home waiting for Josh, literally wearing an apron. Table is all set. She's doing the thing, guys. Like I'm saying, I just see myself in her so much with things like this. I just really did this sort of thing. And I just want to slap and shake myself that I put so much effort in all the time for people who did not appreciate or deserve it. And I am finally with somebody who does appreciate and deserve it, but it just took so long. It took so long. This sort of thing is just taken for granted so much in our society. And we know Rebecca. Guys, like literally, when have we seen her cook on this show? And all of a sudden, this is a scene that we're seeing is her in the kitchen. And that's not to say that she just like never, obviously. She's a grown-ass woman and she must cook for herself occasionally. But it's just, I mean, this is a very particular thing she's doing. And it turns out that she is making noodle kugel, right? Is that how she says it? And she thought that Josh should try something of her culture's food, because she has tried a bunch of his culture's food. And and I should mention, the other time that we saw her cook was for his family's Thanksgiving. So again, it was about him. Like, it was her impressing him. And she's like greeting him and about to try and high five him, and he grabs her and kisses her. And it's a real like surprise sort of moment of him being very affectionate isn't quite the right word, because they like have sex all the time, but this just felt a little different. And you see her being like, oh, awesome, this is what we're doing. But then he gets distracted by the smell of food and she's excited. And then it turns out that he like didn't check with her and he ate on the way home. Now, as somebody who cooks a lot, making something and then finding out that your significant other already ate and will not be having any of this, maybe they'll have it later when they're hungry again, is just the worst. It's always such a disappointment. And it's not always their fault. Like, shit can happen and you know, but it's clear they are not in contact with each other. She didn't text him and be like, hey, I'm making dinner. What time are you going to be home? He didn't text her, hey, I'm grabbing something to eat. Do you want anything? The two of them do not seem to be on the same wavelength about what's going on. And that continues with this question about what, like, do you want to hang out tonight? And he has plans, and then he has plans on Friday. And it becomes really clear that, like, she is just so not a part of what he is planning to do in his spare time that I almost thought he was setting up all of these plans to avoid her. And I don't think that's actually what's supposed to be going on here, but I saw it that way when every time she asks what he's doing, he says he has plans. I kind of assumed that was him trying to distance himself from her. Now, that still may be true, but the way that he reacts about like inviting her to the, what does he call it? The ping pong and cocktail area, which I mean, just, oh God. He seems genuinely like interested in having her come once he invites her. It doesn't feel like this is the reluctant, you know, oh, I guess you can go. That seems fine. Like, he seems like, oh, okay, well, I didn't think you'd have fun, but if you will, then sure. And this is getting into the exact thing that I wondered about in season 1, which was, what is Rebecca really going to have in common with Josh regarding their free time? When he is doing things on his downtime, all of it always seems like stuff that she would not want to do. And apparently her way of coping is to just pretend that she likes it. Now, I'm going to maybe surprise some of you and say that's not always a bad plan. Because, frankly, you're not going to love all the same things that your significant other loves. And there are times when you just need to suck it up, you know, and just be supportive of the fact that they like a thing and do your best to have a good time, even if it's not really something that you like. It's fine, you know? Like, I will play games with Owen sometimes, video games and stuff, that I'm not really that into, but I know that he loves the fact that I'm playing with him. You guys, you should have seen the first time that we played Skyrim and he was showing me how the game worked and I was going through it. He was just so excited. Like, it was the cutest thing. And that's all I ask when I am doing something that I like. And I know that it's not something he's particularly interested in, but he makes an effort. You know, I know that were he given the choice, he wouldn't spend his free time looking at seasonal decorations at TJ Maxx, but he isn't a dick about it. And really, that's fine. So Rebecca, in some ways, I'm not mad at what she's trying to do here. Until she lies about the fact that she's like basically pro level. That's when you don't pretend to be like really into something. You can just be like, oh, I'd be interested in trying that, or I'd like to spend time with you and I'll see if I don't know if I like this or not. But, you know, creating this whole fiction around it, that's when you start to get into some shit that you are pretending to be another person again. And guys, when she gets in contact with this kid, Xiao, to have him teach her ping pong, and she has that song, Ping Pong Girl. Oh God, that was so painful, guys. It is so painful. Like, this is just so exactly what you, like, in your secret heart of hearts, a lot of us ladies especially wanted, was to have a dude think these things about us. That we are super sexy, but not like we're aware of it. We are really good at the thing, but not to impress anybody else. That we are very self-possessed and so aloof as to be even more alluring. The whole thing is just so fucking on point and so embarrassing. Oh, it's so embarrassing to know that this is exactly true. Like, I don't care about who out there is trying to tell themselves they haven't been this way. I don't believe you. Everybody goes through this. Everybody does. There's no way to like grow up in our society as a woman and see teen movies and rom-coms and this shit and not internalize some of that. You just can't do it. Okay? Like, it's just impossible. You can outgrow it and move past it, but you go through it. There's the only way out, is to go through it. So yeah. Oh my God, Erica says that song is something I would have unironically loved in high school. And Megan says, yeah, that song took me right back to high school. Erica says, and Vince Rodriguez is so happy to be performing. You can always tell how much he loves it. I heard somewhere that Ping Pong Girl was one of his favorites. Yeah, it really feels like that was just a fun one to do. You know, the whole like energy around it. It is so hype and sort of like super positive in a way that feels like him. And man, it is really, really on point. And as much as the kid, the Xiao, that Rebecca is like kind of saying, oh, this is what he'll think in front of, who's like, that's not what's going to happen. I kind of am like, I mean, Xiao, I know what you mean. And normally I'd agree with you, but you haven't met Josh. I feel like he kind of would be this way, to be honest, because Josh is just a fucking goober. Like, can we just be real about it? Oh my God. So yeah. And you know, the whole thing with Josh, like not like having eaten already. He says, that's what I love about you. You love me? Love about you. Like, I know that you're not going to get mad because I didn't eat the Jewish noodles. We're independent. You know, we come together when we want to. And when we don't, we stay in our own lanes. This is one of those things that is a real red flag to me. I totally agree with this in theory. But most of the time, when a person says this sort of thing, especially in the beginning stages of a relationship, what they mean is, I'm not that into you. Like, that's just really, honestly, the truth. When you are really, really into someone, you want to be around them all the time. And, like, I don't think you should. I think that's also getting into codependent shit and not great. But you want to. You shouldn't be like, I'm looking forward to time away from them already. That is not to say that you don't value your own hobbies and your time with your friends and all of that. You definitely should. But when it's phrased this way, like, we come together when we want to, that does not sound like we are together, but we also do our own things. It sounds like we do our own things and occasionally we're together. And that just, the whole vibe of it is very, very different to me. There's an episode of Sex and the City like this where they're talking about separate togetherness, which I guess was part of some like Woody Allen movie where they are each sitting, like Woody Allen and his fucking love interest is probably like a quarter his age. They're going to a park and they're each sitting on different park benches, like across the park from one another, reading. And so they're like, they're at the park together, but they're doing their own things in separate spaces and they're each fine with it. To which I just beg, why do you go together then? Like, I don't really go by, like, that is just kind of gives me anxiety. I'd rather just be by myself than to know Owen's like somewhere around, you know? It's just, this is for me, the language of somebody who does not want more than what they have. And Rebecca is trying for more and changing herself in order to get it. And it's just, you know, really, I'm so glad the way this ends up at the end of the episode. So Paula comes to Rebecca and tells her about law school. Can I just say how much I love Rebecca's reaction to Paula giving her this news? I really love how much Rebecca loves Paula, like sincerely does. I was initially with this show a little bit concerned about Rebecca taking advantage of Paula and Paula sort of like using Rebecca as a source of excitement, but the two of them not really like connecting as friends in a real way. And I'm so happy that things have developed to the point where they really are friends and they have like these boundaries that they've set with each other and they are trying to respect those boundaries, but they really do care about each other. And like Rebecca has so much faith in Paula and is really so happy for her and so genuinely like thrilled at the idea that Paula is going to be a lawyer. It is just such a great scene. I am so like touched by it. I've watched this episode 3 times now, I think. And it's just so sweet to see the moment where she shows her the application and Rebecca just goes, "You're not!" Like with fucking absolute one. Oh my God, Siri. Do you see this? Look at this. Siri wrote, oh, it's gone. Siri wrote this whole like paragraph of everything that I've been saying because she heard me say that because I said seriously. I just love Rebecca's like pure up from, you know, energy of 2 to energy of 11. The moment that she sees that application, it is a sincere, genuine moment of excitement on behalf of her friend. And I just think that's the best. So she agrees to write this recommendation letter. And as soon as she does it, I'm like, oh, this bitch is going to fail. Like, she's going to let Paula down and she's not going to write it. And sure enough, that is what happens. And I was so disappointed in Rebecca. Like, I know that she does care about Paula. And that's the great thing about this scene, is that it really hammers that home and lets you know that this isn't because she doesn't love her friend or doesn't believe in her. So I am watching her fail her friend, knowing that's not what it's about, really. But it doesn't make it feel any better. And it's so understandable why Paula is worried. That's what it means. I mean, of course she is. Like, why would you think anything else? It's the whole changing your life when you are at Paula's age. And I'm going to be like assuming Paula's like 40. I'm edging on 40. I am 35. This taking on going back to school at all is a major thing. Going to law school? Y'all, I am very happy for Paula, but I am worried about her too. If you all out there have any friends who have gone to law school, you know what I'm talking about. Law school is a meat grinder. Like, it is brutal. It has some of the most competitive, underhanded people in the world involved. They put you through absolute hell when it comes to, like, you know, your internships and everything that you need to fulfill, like your hours. The exams are really, really tough. And then once you like get a job, Rebecca, where she's working now, it's obviously clearly just like a 9-to-5 gig. That is not necessarily what happens depending on what you get into. And the only thing that's sort of like saving this for me is that Paula's kids are old enough that they don't need too much supervision anymore. But like, regardless of the kids, just as a student with no other responsibilities, I watched people crack under that pressure. I considered going to school for this stuff because I love arguing. I love using logic and facts to back up my ideas and to present and to crush somebody who has this, like, that is my favorite. But when I saw the way some of my friends were beginning to come apart, I was like, oh yeah, no, I don't need that. Like, so I just hope that the school that Paula is going to, I'm hoping that she's sort of like, and this is going to sound really shitty, but I don't mean it this way. I hope she's aiming low in terms of what she wants to do with her degree so that she doesn't have to live up to a 60-hour, 70-hour work week like some places demand. I want her to be able to continue working where she's working and get a promotion within this place and you know, reap the benefits without having to kind of like kill herself over it. Does that make sense? So anyway, I'm fascinated to see how this all turns out. But there's this whole thing with Darrow, who is, oh my God, and I almost forgot about Paula's amazing song about her dreams. And it's done in the, with the same costume and the same like trilling, warbling sort of voice as the song from Sleeping Beauty. Guys, it is so good. As soon as she began to sing, I didn't even see her costume yet, but as soon as she began to sing, I was like, this sounds like fucking Sleeping Beauty. And then the camera pulls back and you see that she's in the woods and she's wearing the whole thing. And I was like, oh my God, all I needed to do was hear her voice, and she nailed it so completely that I immediately knew what she was doing. And everything that she sings about is so completely 100% on point. Erica says the dump cramps are real. I feel so validated by this song. Guys, I will tell you something. So I have talked before about going through a period when I was going to school and working and planning my wedding back when I was with Brendan. And I was experiencing small seizures and fainting spells. And I was also peeing the bed. It caused a lot of concern. Like, we were thinking I might have MS. I still don't know what was going on. I will be serious with y'all. We never figured it out. That, for some reason, has passed. I believe it's because I cut way back on gluten consumption. I was at the time in school for pastry and baking, and I was doing nothing but eating a ton of flour. And I think it had a very adverse effect on me. But I was gaining weight because of eating all this stuff all the time. And I decided to start making an effort to exercise more. And I was out running and I just straight up shit my pants. Like, just completely. It was awful because I was like maybe a block from the house. I had barely been out and I felt it coming and I could do nothing to stop it. And I was staying at the time with Brendan's parents. We were at their like beach house and I had to like waddle home, and it was dark. There was nobody out on the street. So thank God for that. But I had to like get home, clean up as best I could, but then like go to their section of the house to use the washer and dryer. And she was in there. And I was so like, I tried to say that one of the cats shit on our stuff. I don't even remember what I tried to say, but it was like so embarrassing. It was the worst thing. And, it really is something that I have continued to struggle with. Like, I want to be the person who gets up and goes for a walk first thing every morning. I tried doing that for a couple weeks and I always have to go to the bathroom after about a block. I can't do it. I have to wait until like the afternoon to do my workouts. It does not work out for me. I could see if you're at the gym and you have a bathroom right there, you could do morning workouts, but I have to walk to the gym. So what happens is a lot of times I barely make it to the gym and then have to like use the bathroom. And, I just don't like, the last half of my walk being me praying to God that I don't shit my pants again like I did 10 years ago. This whole thing though, I like hoping that maybe this dream won't poop on her face. Maybe this dream won't be a total waste. When you get older, it really does start to be like you get your hopes up and then you immediately like talk yourself down from it. And sometimes you just have to let yourself like hope for the best. That's what I'm doing with my wedding. I'm so excited about my wedding. I'm so excited. Like, it really, I think it's going to be pretty fucking amazing. I've gotten some really good luck regarding the vendors that I have found and the prices that I've gotten. But there is a part of me that is really paranoid. Something is gonna go wrong. I'll lose my job. I don't know how that would happen, but suddenly everybody just like unpledges on Patreon. Owen loses his job. I don't know how that would happen either. But I have this like idea in my head that I have my hopes to set and it's gonna fucking fall apart and I am just gonna be so disappointed by it. And I don't even really think that's going to happen. Not really, but you can't help but sort of be paranoid when you have had things you get excited about go wrong so many times and you've had to like sacrifice things so many times. I am sort of lucky. I have had that happen very few times in comparison with a lot of people. And nevertheless, I have this feeling. Y'all should have heard Rashawn when we were planning our trip to Disney or Universal 2 years ago. It was like the week before and she was still convinced something was going to happen and she wouldn't be able to go. Like, this is just what happens to you, and it's such a shame. It's so important to try to like believe that things are going to be okay. And you have to simultaneously accept that I am going to believe in this thing and I am going to accept if it doesn't work out, it's going to really hurt. And you just have to be like in it, and that I may go through pain. And I just have to be okay with knowing that that is also a possibility and choose to focus on my excitement instead. And that's a hard thing to do because we convince ourselves that like by preparing for the worst, it will make the worst less painful if it happens. Does it though? Does it though? I don't think so. I think if anything, if you focus on the potential worst outcome and the worst outcome actually happens, what you experience immediately might not be as painful, but the long-term consequences will be more painful because you will be feeding into this hopeless part of yourself that grows way stronger and begins to take over other parts of your life that you didn't intend for it to touch. And by then, it's sort of out of your control because you have fed it so much. So I think it sounds logical to be like, well, hope for the best, expect the worst. But honestly, I don't feel like that's like a super healthy attitude. I think you have to feed the hopeful part of yourself. And if something happens and it doesn't work, you have to like try and accept the pain of that gracefully and just feel it and experience it and attempt to reconnect with your faith in things again with the same excitement. And it's super difficult to do. I mean, I'm not saying this like I do it. I try. I really do. And I do tend to get more excited about things than the average person. I'm very enthusiastic once I'm into a thing. But I think that's like a life thing that we need to, as human beings, sort of like figure out for ourselves, each of us individually, how to continue to enjoy things and have excitement around them and hope around them, even after experiencing heartbreaks and disappointments. And it's just, Paula's whole deal here is just so understandable. Yeah. So, and I also love all of the dudes in the office being dressed as birds and showing up and saying Tweedledee. So anyway, Daryl has written a recommendation letter and he keeps talking about how him and Paula are best friends. And it's really adorable that he is like so convinced of this. But also I do want to be like, why do you think that, dude, though? Because like I never see you guys hang out by yourselves ever. When has that even happened? Except for that one time where he told her to go to the wedding and be friends with Rebecca. But yeah, he has written her a recommendation letter and she's like, it's okay. Rebecca is writing me one, and she hands it back to him. Guys, call me crazy, but somebody writes you a recommendation letter, you fucking take that shit, right? Like, even if you're not necessarily going to use it, just take it. That was a nice thing that somebody did for you. Go ahead. They don't have to know you didn't use it. They're not going to see your application. Just take it. But yeah, she's like, unwilling to take it until it turns out she, has no alternative because Rebecca has been so wrapped up in this whole fucking ping pong thing that she forgot to even do it. Even though she said, I will sit down right now and write it. She does not. So Paula winds up having to use the one that Daryl gave her. There's an amazing scene where she and Rebecca are talking about it because it's like Friday and she needs it. And Daryl is on the floor pushing the recommendation letter under the door with a ruler. And then he hears them talking about how he like misspells things. And he tries to take the letter back and attaches like a piece of gum to the ruler to like grab the envelope. I swear to God, guys, I love that so much. I was cracking up. But yeah, it's really like the self-doubt that Paula experiences because Rebecca failed to write it on time. She thinks that maybe Rebecca thinks that her gambit here is stupid. And it is so painful to see her think that. And it's clear it's coming from her own doubts, but it's understandable why she would interpret Rebecca's hesitation that way. And man, I hate seeing Paula get hurt and her rationalizing to her husband, like she's really busy and I shouldn't have asked her for such a big favor. And I love her husband being like, it's not that big a favor. She's asked you to do a million things. And Rebecca's like, she's never asked me to do any of that. And he's like, nevertheless, you're really not being that like pushy here. Your expectations aren't that high. The fact that she can't meet them, that's not your fault. And man, her husband is really knocking it out of the park. R.E. being a supportive husband, like good for him. Makes me very happy. Okay, so oh God, guys, Greg comes back to work. He's going to continue to work at Home Run. Is that the name of the place is? And they are being really, really weird about the fact that he's an alcoholic. And by weird, I just mean talking about it a whole lot and very openly, even though he does not seem interested in projecting to the world everything that's going on with him. Understandably, this is a very personal thing. Erica says the actor who plays Scott is a therapist in real life. Oh, interesting. Home base. Thank you. So yeah, first of all, Heather, guys, is it just me, or does Heather look even better this season than she did last season? Because she is so beautiful. She's been beautiful. Like, don't get me wrong, but there's something about her this season. She's like glowing. Like, I don't know if they just figured out that the foundation they were using didn't work for her, or they got a new makeup artist and that she's using a different highlighter or what. But like, damn, Heather. Oh, her skin. It's really just annoying. Stop it. So she says, the way she phrases it, guys, to Greg, I heard that you finally figured out you're an alcoholic. Oh, girl, never change. And he goes and sees her at the boba place later and tells her that he wants to give her an apology. And she's very like, hey, dude, you don't need to do this. And he tells her, no, I really want to get this out. And then what does he apologize for? For stealing all of her French fries one time when he was drunk. This dude abandoned her. And she just, like, and I guess he figures that's not something he did because he was drinking, which I guess, but like, yeah, sitting down with somebody who has really fucked up your life in some ways and them telling you that they're about to apologize and then they do this. I mean, oh yeah, I would be so irritated. Forget it. And she's honestly pretty graceful about the whole thing. She's like, honestly, I don't remember that at all, but I will take your apology for that and apply it to other stuff. And then they just sort of drop it. He doesn't ask what other stuff. And she doesn't like push it and be like, don't you remember XYZ that you did? She's just gonna just let it go. And honestly, she displays a grace there that I don't know that I would have. When I have this kind of convo with somebody, I really want to feel like they understand where I'm coming from. Not just for my own satisfaction, but like, what's the point of apologizing if you're not going to learn anything? Because the point in an apology, in my opinion, is expressing that you understand your behavior was not okay in order to indicate that you have spotted the behavior and you will not repeat this. And how can somebody possibly not repeat behavior if they don't know what that behavior even was? So I am always somebody who, it may seem like I'm pushing somebody because I want them to feel bad, but that's not it. It's just that I want them to like understand. And I think I respond that way to try and explain to other people, because when I have done something wrong, there have been times where somebody has chosen a different way to explain, and they're like, okay, so here's what it looks like to me. And all of a sudden I'll be like, oh my God, okay, I get it now. I didn't mean it that way at all. And I didn't really see why you were reacting this way. But now that you say it like that, fuck, okay, I'm really sorry. I did not think about it looking that way. So I am sort of looking for that epiphany from other people when I have the conversation that I have occasionally. And maybe that's just not really fair all the time. Maybe they will get the gist without me having to go into minute detail about everything they did wrong. But it's hard. I overanalyze everything. That's just how I roll. I mean, that's why I fucking do what I do for a living, So yeah, I admired her restraint there. So, all right, I pretty much talked over like the major scenes, and then I did not talk about the main one, which is Josh explaining to Greg that he had sex with Rebecca. And of course, the way that it seems at first to Greg is that Josh and Rebecca slept together one time right after the wedding because it was a particularly bad night. It's amazing because Josh is talking to Father Brach And when he says that he doesn't want to tell Greg because he is an alcoholic and just announced that, and he feels like it'd be putting him through too much, unexpectedly, Father kind of agrees with him and is like, yeah, if you tell him, that will be because you are feeling guilt and you want to get rid of it. You're just trying to put your burden on someone else to, relieve yourself. And that is not fair. So I don't think you should tell him. And Josh seems happy with that until he goes and talks to Josh and tries to be cool, comes off as really weird. And Josh interprets the weirdness as Josh is such a good friend who cares about him so much that the announcement of his alcoholism has really kind of fucked Josh up. And that is too much. Josh can't handle Greg thinking, oh, you're just such a good friend to me that understandably you fucked this up and I don't blame you for it. And so he blurts out, I slept with Rebecca. And by blurt out, I mean like yells it. Like everybody in the boba tea garden turns and looks at them. It is really something. So Greg tries to be a grown-up and be like, I understand that was a really fucked up night. But then Josh has to be like, look, dude, it wasn't just the one time. And you can see Greg, his face darkens and he's trying so hard. I really admire him here. I do. But he says, that makes sense. I was being a drunk jerk and abandoned her by blacking out. That's his initial response. When Josh tells him more than once, plus I'm staying with her. I lied to you about staying in an Airbnb, the whole thing. Greg says, let's just put this behind us. And they have like a bro hug and Heather's staring at Greg in this way. And when Josh walks away, she says to Greg, and I love this, it's kind of important to me that you be fucked up over this because you screwed me over for her because you allegedly cared about her so much. And if you can just roll with the fact that she's sleeping with somebody else, it's going to make me feel like it really took nothing for you to dick me over at all. Like this wasn't real between you two. And apparently what was between me and you was even less real. And that sucks. And oh man, I really understand that perspective. I really, really do. And he says all of the things that I said last episode, which is basically like, I ruined everything myself. I have nobody but myself to blame. I sent her one text and then disappeared for an entire month. We had this undefined thing. And then we had this like nightmare date before I disappeared. And Heather says, you're getting sober. You're not a robot. And he tries to be cool. But then as soon as he is alone at home base, that I don't care song comes back up again. And he punches a wall. The most white dude response to rage. Now, I will say that in Greg's case, it is growth. His deciding to punch a wall rather than have a drink, maybe it is destructive, but it's still sort of facing things in its way. It's not perfect, but it's a step. But this is the sort of thing that he was warned about. The pink cloud. He is having to cope with some shit. I really, this rationalization, and it's not even, he's giving very real reasons why he understands what happened. And that's like the thing about emotions. You can understand why things happened a certain way, but you can still be upset. They can both be true. People are complicated. Erica says, I'm unnervingly attracted to Greg in the split second before he punches the wall. Probably a red flag on my part, to be honest. Erica, as a woman who love shows where men are screaming and fighting and covered in blood and punching one another. Hashtag relatable. I'm just saying, I respond on a lizard brain level to some aspects of male rage and violence. And like, of course, as long as it's not directed at a vulnerable party, obviously it has to be directed at other men. But nevertheless, I get it. Oh, do I ever? Vikings is one of my favorite shows for a reason. So he doesn't wind up showing up to the ping pong date that he was supposed to go to. And this is when Josh tells all of his friends how maybe it has something to do with the fact that he told Greg he's sleeping with Rebecca. Now, Hector already knows this, but he didn't know that Josh told Greg. And White Josh didn't know at all. And it's an amazing moment, you guys, because he wants to know, why didn't you tell me? And Hector says, you're kind of judgy, dude. And later on, when Rebecca comes over and finds out that Josh told, White Josh calls them a couple of horny monsters. And then, oh, I'm sorry. Did that sound judgy? Good. Guys, that fucking line delivery killed me. I swear to God, I fucking cackled. Every time I watched it, too. Every time. I knew it was coming, and it was still so fucking funny. Oh, you horny monsters. Good. So they all split up and look for him. Josh and Hector are going to specific bars. White Josh and Hector. And then Brown Josh is staying where they are in case Greg decides to show up. Rebecca, who is supposed to sort of stay out of it, knows that she could probably find him using the same tracking technology that Paula used. And she discovers him at a duck pond, just sitting there with the box of donuts he was supposed to bring to the meeting, sitting underneath the bench. She sits down, and there's a long moment of just her being like, are you okay? Before starting any, conversation. And then she tells him, I wanted to tell you myself, but I didn't know where you were. And honestly, I wanted her to be like, I came to your father's house trying to find you. And I would love an explanation from Greg why his dad reacted the way that he did. Again, because that bothered me a little bit. But she says, you broke my heart. However, that's not an excuse for me to sleep with your best friend. And Greg is just, guys, what I had theorized is even more true than I thought. My guess was that he woke up still drunk and then tried to drive to Rebecca's to apologize. What he was trying to drive there for was to apologize and tell her that he loves her. And he got arrested on the way, which is just such poetry. And he says, I missed my shot. I fucked up. And if you're with Josh and he treats you well, then everything worked out. And he asks straight up, does he treat you well? And you see her get really teary-eyed because she knows that he does not. There is nothing worse than thinking, telling yourself a story in your head and then somebody asking you something or saying something that gets right to the heart of it, and you suddenly know without a doubt that the story you've told yourself is fucking garbage. There is nothing like that moment. I have had that a couple times. I have had it because of something someone said to me, and I've had it from watching a TV show and seeing a character go through a thing and suddenly realizing that this stupid character that's doing a stupid thing is doing the exact stupid thing that I had been doing for a year. And I had kind of a meltdown over it, where you suddenly are just like, oh my God, I've been lying to myself so effectively. And it's so transparently untrue. Oh my God. And he's trying to be so compassionate here, and I really, really respect it. Obviously, he's fucked up over it. But, you know, he tries to be okay and tells her that he punched a wall instead of having a drink, which is sort of progress. And then they get interrupted by Xiao, who needs a ride home because he's still there. So Rebecca, who is impressed with Greg being a new, more enlightened person, which Greg laughs off because not exactly, but okay. She goes home and she's talking about it with Josh, who is doing that thing that people do where, yeah, he's having a conversation with her, but he can't even be bothered to like pause his game and really talk with her about it. He's playing a video game and not making eye contact. And just like, you know, when he responds, it's about how relieved he is that Greg isn't mad. Like, it's not about Greg at all. Again, it's all about him. And he finally asked Rebecca, do you want to play this game with me? I know you like video games. And she finally confesses, hey, you know what? I don't really like video games. I lied. And he says, oh, like you lied about ping pong? What the hell was that? And sort of laughs in this like disparaging way. And she just stops and looks at him and tells him the truth and just says, I was trying to spend time with you, Josh. That's what it was all about, you know? And she starts to walk away and then she says, you know what, Josh, you live here. You do. And I don't know what you're, you know, telling other people or telling yourself, but I deserve to be with someone who treats me well. And Josh is taken aback and says, wow. And she agrees and also says, wow. And just goes upstairs by herself. She does not try to convince him to come with her. She doesn't sit down with him and attempt to continue hanging out with him. And when she goes upstairs, she gets Greg's sweatshirt out of the drawer and like snuggles up with it and goes to bed, which Josh had slept in her bed one time. I'm assuming he's still sleeping on the couch. So he won't be like coming up and seeing this, but apparently Rebecca is beginning to have second thoughts about whether running off with Josh was actually the smart idea. Now, I understand that. I think all the viewers understand her having these second thoughts. Josh and her are not a good match. I've been saying. But, you know, I love the scene in the ping pong place where Hector is watching her and just says, why are all of my friends in love with her? Because, I mean, she is just tearing through this friend group. Hector is clearly not interested, so thank God for that. And White Josh is gay. Or else I would just be like, are they gonna have her hook up with everybody? But I just really worry about her trying to rekindle things with Greg and that causing them each to fall into bad patterns again. Give it time, Bex. You don't need to be with either one of them. How about you just like try and be yourself by yourself and not be focused on anybody else for a minute? But it seems like she's not quite ready to like just do that. Everything has been revolving around a significant other for so long that I don't know if she knows how to just like be alone. So anyway, I'm over time and I need to wrap. The next episode is a live watch. It's a voyeur episode. So guys, guys, February 4th. It's next week. Thank God. Guys, I was going to die. I swear to God. When I saw that I like couldn't watch it right away, I told Owen. He was so mad. He was like, because every time that I cover this show, he wants to watch the next one immediately afterwards. So when I told him like, oh, by the way, we're not going to be able to do that, he was like, fuck. But yeah, next Tuesday, the 4th of February at 1 p.m., I will be on Facebook Live watching it. I can't wait. Because honestly, usually when there's like a live watch for a TV show, people commission that for later on in seasons. Usually it's around the finale. Because there's like a big reveal or something. So the fact that this is happening on the 3rd episode is very interesting, very surprising to me. And I just have no idea what this is going to mean. So I guess we'll see. I can't wait. But thank you very much to Megan, who is in the chat. She's apologizing to Owen. I'll let him know. But thank you very much to Megan for commissioning this and for commissioning The Voyeur. After I watched it on the live watch, the coverage for it will be the very next day on the 5th. So, cha-ching, that's awesome. And then following that will be the 21st of February and then the 24th and 31st of March. So there's going to be almost a month between episodes 4 and 5. But yeah, thank you everybody so much for commissioning this. This show has been super fun. I am dying at the fact that I can't just press play right now and watch the next one, which I frequently do because I have it open on Netflix when I am doing the coverage on, I will be watching it. And oftentimes with this show, I will leave the Netflix window open and I will just click on to the next episode and just watch it sitting at my desk because I'm so interested. And I can't do that this time. So I just close that window, that tab, and I'll just cry a little bit. But I don't have too long to wait. All right, everybody. I will be seeing you again next week. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.